everybody, welcome to the Faith and Fandom podcast. This is the Artists Alley Aftermath for Boone Comic Con. This is the first Comic Con I've done in Boone personally, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first Boone Comic Con. This Comic Con was originally scheduled for October 5th, but because of the flooding and hurricane damage that happened in the western part of North Carolina, this show was canceled because literally the town was flooded. While they did experience flooding, they did not experience the devastation that Asheville and Batcave and some of the other towns in North Carolina experienced. But it was still enough to push a Comic-Con back 6 to 8 weeks. But I'm proud of them for actually making it happen, because I know that's good for the world and commerce to keep moving forward. In fact, the hotel I stayed in at this con, the entire back half of the first floor was underwater at some point. All those rooms have been gutted and renovated, and everything moving forward with that now. But yeah, it's been a road getting to this point for a lot of people. So I was grateful to see the show move forward. This might technically be my last Comic-Con of the year. I might do a little mall shindig that's in my town. I might not. I might just be Christmassy. Who knows? But yeah, let's get down into it. So this is Boone, North Carolina, is roughly 4 hours from me. And also, just not that you need to know this, this is my second go at recording this podcast, because I started last night. But I am sick. The sickness hit me yesterday. And about 5 minutes into this podcast, I literally was falling asleep in the chair and don't know what I was saying. So I was like, you know what? Let's start over. But, yeah, it's roughly a 4-hour drive from me. So I worked about a half day between podcasting and my work at the college and headed to Boone. It's a pretty chill drive. Lots of falling fall leaves. Traffic's not crazy terrible. It's a decent experience just getting there. But it is still 4 chunky hours. And I am grateful, though, because places like Seven Brew have opened up along the route since my last time traveling to this region. I think the last time I went to this region was when I went to the Wizard of Oz theme park about a year and a half ago, or more, who knows when it was. But I passed through this region, and I'm pretty sure they've added 3 new Seven Brews, which, if you don't know, Seven Brew is a drive-through coffee establishment, and they've added 3 new Seven Brews to just the route to Boone, so that's nice. Coffee for days. But I got there, checked into my hotel, made sure it wasn't a nightmare, and it was great. It was actually a really nice room, surprisingly, especially for a hotel that was flooded 6 weeks ago. And they were telling a lady in front of me in line about the flooding and everything else, and she was trying to get her money back because she was scared, and he's like, no, everything's fine, every room has been tested, and a lot. He gave the assurances, and as somebody who's lived through a couple floodings, I wasn't necessarily concerned. But they did have tarps up down half the hall where they're doing renovations and remodeling, so it definitely had a murder scene vibe to it. But checked in the hotel, loaded back up, and without any intentional planning to make this happen, literally the convention center was a block from the hotel, just on the back side. You had to do some zigs and zags to get there because it's mountainous, but you could literally see the convention center or recreation center from the hotel, just kind of down a mountain and around a corner. But the recreation center where the hotel took place, or where the con took place, also was flooded at one point. So everybody's kind of bouncing back from that circumstance. And as I went in to set up, I was quickly made aware that this was going to be a different type, um, a different type of situation. When I drive into the parking lot, the first thing I see is a giant glass front with an Olympic-sized swimming pool and a 2 to 3 story water slide. Then you drive a little further, and there's people on ellipticals and electric or exercise bikes and stuff like that. Drive a little further, and there's people playing pickleball and basketball and playgrounds and biking. And you had to drive literally kind of like a spiral pattern around this place to get to where the convention center was. And I'm just going to say convention center because I'm not going to remember to say recreation center, and I'm going to keep stuttering over that. So, no, if I say convention center, it's a recreation center. And pulled up, walked in, and checked in at the booth where the showrunners were, and was directed to my table. And my table is literally directly in front of the entrance. So if you walk in, you walk past where you buy your ticket, and it's me. Hi. And so I appreciate that, because you literally could have been anywhere else, but I was really grateful to be the first person, like the first thing you see. That didn't mean more people stopped, but it was definitely nice to be able to actually exist at the show. I was then promptly greeted by a mountain man in a fedora who was very keen to help me load in, and he was helping everybody load in. It was pretty, like, it wasn't a long walk from where I was parked to where I was in, but the dude literally walked out to the car, grabbed stuff, and was appreciative for somebody to actually, take the time to do that, because that's not happening at, like, every show. And and one thing to say is that it's really a different region. The mountains of North Carolina are not the same as the coast of North Carolina, and it was literally like mountain people. And you could tell, oh yeah, you're mountain people. Like, certain dialects, certain accents, saying, gotta drive down the mountain. Like, it was cool. To be in a different, and it's crazy how for just 4 hours changes the whole dynamic of people as well as barbecue, but we'll get to that. And anyway, so dude helped me set up. While I was setting up, another dude came by, said, this is a really interesting concept. And he thought it was a cool idea, and just kind of in passing went on. Now here's where things get interesting in terms of the con layout. Because this is a recreation center, this is definitely different than any show I've ever done before. Now, I've done plenty of shows in gyms. Gyms are fine. There's nothing wrong with doing a show in a gymnasium. I've done dozens on dozens of shows in gymnasiums. What I've not done is done a show at an active recreation center. There was literally a partition. There was a partition wall between us and the other side of the building. Meaning every sound, every dribble, hey, that girl falling, why she throwing it in my eye? Like, every sound of the recreation was constant. The dribbling, the shooting, the buzzers, the splashing, the elliptical whirls, the barbells dropping. Every single sound was present. After a while, it just kind of blended in, but as someone who suffers from misophonia, little noises literally change my brain chemistry to where I am made of rage. And so that was something to adjust, and I literally spent some of my time that evening preparing my mind to be okay with this. I eventually got the booth set up and was pretty happy with it. The last few shows I've done, I've had 8-foot tables. And so 6 foot was like, oh, this is sad again. But still made it work. Still did my best to put everything out in the best way possible. I got some sushi nachos for dinner. that was like this place that had tuna nachos with like wasabi and other things instead of cheese. And instead of nacho chips, it was like wontons shaped like nacho chips. So it was a fun life experience, faux show. And people were watching the preliminaries of the Jake Paul fight. Like, I wasn't out that late, but like the first fight and stuff. And I also got to hear the tail end of a band called the Lightning Bugs, which was pretty good. Did some like Stevie Nicks stuff and things like that. And then went on back to the hotel and prepped for the next day. Did some work for church that I was behind on, because having a bajillion jobs and other ministries is not always conducive to productivity. And but yeah, so went to the show after getting my hotel breakfast, which was nice. The lobby was pretty cool. There's a lot of people there. Definitely nobody there for the Comic Con, but there were people there for some Christmas stuff. And in the hotel lobby, I saw people from Baptist on Mission, who were the people there doing damage recovery and flood repair in the Asheville area, and they were staying in Boone to go do that. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, set up on the show. Not only was I the first booth, I was directly across from the showrunner, who had their own booth of stuff as well. And ran into people like Joe Lisi, who's one of my longtime con friends. Saw Chris McJunkin, Brian Wingrove, who's an artist who does the Bluey Nightcrawler that a lot of people comment on my podcast stuff. Yeah, just saw a lot of artists that I have met before. Claws for Creation, Kev. Yeah, there's just a handful of people I know. And the show got started. And they had a line when the door opened. Now, it wasn't a crazy line. It wasn't like a line wrapped around the block. But it was a line. And anytime you can start a con with a line, you haven't failed yet. And the crowd stayed pretty consistent through most of the day up until the afternoon hours. Especially around lunchtime and 2 o'clock, there were some big pushes. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention, though, about the recreation center is that not only was there only a little partition wall separating the show from the gym, there was a second-story catwalk which circled the entire building. Meaning, you couldn't just walk into the con. You had to go outside and pay to get in. But you could walk the walking trail on the second-story catwalk and look at the entire show. And so the entire time, there were people 2 stories above you looking down at you. Like it was a gladiator pit for nerds trying to sell their wares. And, yeah. It was a weird experience, but it was cool because you would see some people walking the laps, and then eventually you see those same people come around and pay money to get in, because apparently they would see something that they actually enjoyed and wanted to purchase, which good job for whoever made the things. But still adds to the unique element of the experience. Pretty early off the bat, a lady came to talk to me. She had seen my booth after I had already left when I was setting up. And she was really interested, and we talked about Faith and Fandom, and we had good conversations, and she ended up getting some books, and she came like 3 hours later and had me sign them. She was a total sweetheart, and she was a real big blessing. And I honestly thought, okay, if that's my whole interaction this weekend, awesome. It wasn't, but she made it out to be a really good start. Another cool experience was a little kid, who was, there in like a Pikachu hoodie, came by, and, the dad wanted to buy a couple stickers, I think. And, the kid ended up wanting a game controller candle. And after he did it, after he got the candle, he said, the dad said, this is his first con, and you are his first con purchase. And I take that to be a great honor. So, little Pikachu hoodie kid in the mountains of North Carolina, I salute you. Now, one thing that is a not a huge negative, but one thing that can be a problem at shows is empty booths. Like, if you have a table that's empty and people walk by, they may not even come down your aisle because they see that there are empty tables. So an empty table beside you could be fatal to your ability to be able to actually connect with people. And I started getting moderately nervous as during setup time because the table directly beside me was empty. Now, I am at the entrance. I'm not in the worst place, but that still put me at a disadvantage. So I waited till like about 11:30, and I asked the showrunner, I was like, hey, can I spread my stuff down and ask the other table beside me to fill in the gaps? Because I'd seen other people moving their stuff around to try and fill in some gaps. Because I want to say there were, let's be precise, I can say that there were at least 5 or 6 empty booths. Now, keep in mind, this show was booked for October, and not everybody that was booked for October can make it in November and had the chance to really communicate. They said yes. I pulled out my friend Brendan's dice towers, which were on sale for $65, handmade of poplar wood and covered in felt for the trays for a nice clink, 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 clink action. That's not really a commercial or anything. I just wanted to do that. But my friend Brendan made dice towers, and I've been trying to help sell them at shows. So once we spread out the table, I threw out like 4 or 5 handfuls of dice and put it at the edge of the table with the dice towers. And so little kids were coming by and putting the dice into the dice tower, which made their show more fun and gave me chances to talk to people. So win-win all around. Had, a couple good conversations with people. Some people were really into the buttons. Somebody wanted a shirt. There were people that were there that, the same deal of usually people being grumpy. One of my con friends sat at the booth for a while and sketched and hung out with me, so I wasn't by myself. And it was good interactions for the most part. I had some pretty strong encouragements. I had some people that were very edifying. Yeah, by and large, it was pretty solid in terms of response. Now, when there was at one point early in the show, a gentleman who looks like, and I would say he would be an extra on Sons of Anarchy, walked in with a teenage girl wearing a Death Note shirt and some other additions to the family. And, here's the deal. We're never supposed to judge people by their appearances, right? From 1 Samuel on down. And I thought for sure these were going to be people that would not be interested in my stuff. And the young lady in the Death Note shirt came by, and she flipped out over the God is a fan of you shirt. And she was so into it. And I told the dad of the family what the booth was, and then the older gentleman, aka Sons of Anarchy, came by and they had me tell him, and I was like, yeah. He's like, give me the spiel. And I'm like, Faith and Fandom is a book series of essays on faith and geek culture along the lines of devotionals or Bible studies on video games, superheroes, comics, anime, sci-fi, etc., etc. There are 9 books in the series, but they're in no order, so you can jump around to whatever's more stuff you actually like, the spiel. And he's like, are these any denominational base? And I said, no, sir. He's like, so what do you believe? He said, how do you get to heaven? No, he said, what do you believe in? And I said, Jesus. He's like, how do you get to heaven? And I was like, through Jesus Christ alone, because he's the death and resurrection for our salvation and the payment for our sins, through the atonement of his blood and our future redemption and the hope of glory. And I start quoting the Romans Road to him and all these things. He's like, good. He's like, good. And then the dad said, yeah, my dad's a pastor. I was like, oh, I'm a pastor too. He's like, and I stood up and he gave me like a hearty handshake. He's like, you never know with people. Then we continue on our discussion about churches and ministry and life and fandoms and all sorts of stuff. And it was good. But again, my bad for thinking somebody that looked kind of intimidating and gruff and a teenager in a Death Note shirt were not going to be my bread and butter, but they were my people. And eventually they came back by and she got her shirt, and I think I gave her a sticker too. There are some people that were pretty just cool overall. A dude came by and ended up buying 3 books. I want to say he bought 8 Bite Size and Flockward. And he says, oh yeah, I grew up in the Satanic Panic. I need this book, talking about Flockward. So it was pretty interesting overall. Good responses, good times at the show. There was a lemonade stand outside, which was making homemade lemonade, which was pretty banging. There was a barbecue truck that had jalapeno mac and cheese, and I really just wanted the jalapeno mac and cheese, but they sold out. And so the options were to get barbecue, baked beans, and coleslaw. I'm like, I can rock with that. That's fine. Barbecue, baked beans, and coleslaw. I ordered the food. I paid for it. And then the soul-crushing thought hit me. I am not in Eastern North Carolina, and I just ordered barbecue. If you are in a different region of the world and you don't understand this, there are different creations of barbecue in North Carolina than anywhere else in the world. But even within North Carolina, there are divisions on what barbecue is and how you make it and how things are prepared. And Eastern North Carolina barbecue is its own thing. And I just realized I'm in the mountains and I just ordered barbecue from a food truck. And I remember having a conversation with the food truck chef the night before, saying that he's from the coast. But that didn't tell me what he was making. And I'm going to tell you this. I got that tray, and before I even took a bite of it, I knew I was in foreign soil. There was no vinegar. It was not North Carolina barbecue. I'll just say that much. Now, was it good? Absolutely. What I couldn't have rocked with if it was tomato-based sauce, like Sonny's in Florida or something like that. I couldn't have done that. I would have given that to a booth neighbor because I know what that does to my stomach. I can't rock with it. But the coleslaw was different than anything I'd ever seen before. It was not a coleslaw I was familiar with in any way, shape, or form. And the baked beans were not baked beans. They were like whole kidney beans and garbanzos with some baked bean sauce. It was weird. Was it good? Yes. Will I remember to check my geography before I order barbecue again? Absolutely. Yeah, the show went on. It was a good show. I had a good time. And it was good to see the people. And my friend Joe gave me like a free button, and I got some Pokemon stickers. And I bought, what did I buy? I bought a large quantity of Delicious and Dungeon stickers and some random Pokemon cards from people. So it was pretty good overall in those capacities. But it was a 5:00 show, so it wasn't going to last forever, which I'm also grateful for. Yeah. Oh, another thing I'll throw out just on hospitality. The show was kind of killing it on hospitality because even before the flood, they had emailed all the vendors asking them what type of pizza they wanted, pepperoni or cheese, because there's a Capone's Untouchables pizzeria in their town, and they were giving all the vendors free pizza. They were also giving all the vendors free croissants and bagels and coffee during Saturday morning setup. So great on hospitality. And the showrunner, at one point in time, or a couple times actually, rolled a cart up and down the aisles, which, much like we did at my con and the Brothers Boyd did at theirs. But this time when they rolled it, it had like chocolate and chips and snacks and water. And so they loved on their vendors really well. I don't normally just throw out prices for cons and shows because it's not always polite, but I'll just say this. They did $100 booth fee for a 1-day show. That's about as comfortable as I can be with a show, and say it's worth it. For me, ideally, $75 a day would be banging. But the show did $100 a day, and it wasn't a bad, for the hospitality they provided alone. The money was well worth it. I have to be 100% honest. I don't know how well I did because I have been busy and tired and sick, and I haven't actually counted money. And I don't even know how much money is in my box from previous shows. I know in terms of credit card sales, I did $33. Now, do I feel like I made my booth back? Yes. I probably did make my booth back. Do I feel like I made my booth and my hotel and my gas back? Absolutely not. But it's why I have Patreon and 4 jobs. Because this is ministry and that's what it's there for. And I got to bless some people. I got to give out some free stickers and be encouraging and make some kids' days. And so it was a good experience overall. They have a show in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, on March 8th, which I will probably do my best to do because I generally enjoyed the vibe of the people and what they were doing, and the showrunners were very kind to me. This is a show that way back in August, the lady was passing out flyers for this show, and I pulled her aside and asked her, I was like, hey, would you be okay if I applied? I know Jesus booths aren't for every show, as several shows this year have reminded me. And she's like, oh no, we'd love to have you there. And so, they were encouraging to me. And so I'm grateful for them, and I will gladly visit their shows again. So yeah, if that is the capper, if that is the end of my shows for 2024, it's not a bad show to end on, and I'm grateful I got to be a part of it. Before I dip out of here, though, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters: Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, and Adam Davis. Thank you all for being the great encouragements that you are. And I hope to see you at a con real soon. And if I don't see you beforehand, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you later.